I've got slightly inconsistent lighting today, but oh, don't you love seeing the silver linings on clouds? I can see it's gorgeous. I mean, no, I don't think I can show it to you, but let me see. Gorgeous. Anyway, today's video is about the ISFP. If you're new to the channel, my name is Isha. This is Adventure with Isha. I have been traveling for about 8 years now, pretty much nonstop. And I've lived in a lot of different countries. I was born in Sri Lanka, grew up in the Netherlands, France, and the UK, and I've been all over the place. And I've come to the conclusion that what the world needs is radical love. I had to work on myself a huge amount to get to this stage where I have this infinite supply of love in myself. On this channel, I try to promote radical love in lots of different ways. Right now, I'm doing a series of videos just on Myers-Briggs personality types because I found Myers-Briggs to be one of the best tools to understand yourself. And the first step of love is really understanding. So, understanding yourself and understanding others so that we can cultivate self-love and love for others. If you are unfamiliar with Myers-Briggs as a system, I've made 2 introductory videos which you can go check out. One is about the 4 letters that you get when you first do that test on like the 16 personalities website. You get 4 letters, and those 4 letters map onto cognitive functions. So the second video talks about the cognitive function stack, and I'm being distracted by the light because it's gorgeous. So the 4 letters map onto cognitive functions. You've got 4 cognitive functions for each personality type. The dominant one is the strongest, and the inferior function is the weakest. And I call it the Achilles heel of each of the personality types. I've put all the videos into a playlist, so you can go check that out. Today's video is about the ISFP. On the 16 personalities website, ISFPs are known as the adventurer. ISFPs are your quintessential artists, your creatives. They very much live life to the beat of their own drum. So let's go over the cognitive function stack for the ISFP. ISFPs have FI as their dominant function, so introverted feeling first. Their second function is SE, followed by NI, introverted intuition, followed by TE, extroverted thinking. So it goes FI, SE, NI, TE. What does that mean? It means that they lead with their feelings. ISFPs are deep feelers. They have very strong core values that they hold dear, and they live their life based on their core values. That's the most important thing to an ISFP. They're also very big on authenticity. They lead with their heart, and so they lead with authenticity. ISFPs are deeply empathetic individuals. Because they feel so deeply, they are very well equipped to deal with other people's emotions too, because they're tuned into their feelings on a very deep level. So they have a lot of space for people's feelings. Their second function is extroverted sensing. So this is the function associated with being in the present with your senses, with your sight, smell, touch, hearing. We're right here, right now, in the sensory world, in the physical world, with your senses. So ISFPs are extremely present individuals. They're really present, and they have this really strong core value system. I think this is why they have the stereotype of being an artist or creative, because they tend to focus all that energy, all that emotional energy they've got, and their ability to be present into works of art, into creativity in lots of different ways, whether it be creating music or painting or cooking or any sort of creative process. ISFPs tend to channel a lot of their energy into that. SE is all about being in the present with your senses, which means that it's also a very experimental function. So ISFPs like to learn as they go, learn as they do. So they're in the present, doing things and getting better with trial and error. Their third function is introverted intuition, which is about this visionary insight that goes into the future. It's their third function, so it can be slightly weaker. So ISFPs are not as good at looking into the future as they are at staying present. But of course, just like all the other personality types, if you are conscious of these functions and you start to develop them consciously, ISFPs can become really good at seeing into the future using their own internal intuitive map. They can use this internal intuitive map to spot patterns and kind of see a few steps ahead. And their last function, the thing that really trips up an ISFP, is extroverted thinking. This is the function to do with getting stuff done. So being productive, completing tasks, thinking about results and goals, concrete evidence of progress. Extroverted thinking is a logical function, and it's to do with the external world. So it's to do with concrete results, getting stuff done, data. TE is all about structure, productivity. And so ISFPs tend to be a little bit weaker on that because it's the exact opposite of their super strength, which is introverted feeling. So thinking about how they feel about a particular situation. It's an introverted function, so it's very personal to each and every ISFP. When ISFPs are stressed, they will go into what's known as the loop state. So they will go from the first function to the third function, back to the first function, back to the third function, and they will skip their second function. Their second function is SE, extroverted sensing. So for ISFPs, this means they go from introverted feeling to introverted intuition, introverted feeling to introverted intuition. It's an introverted loop. And so they will be stuck in their own internal patterns because they're going from one introverted function to another introverted function and back to another introverted function. So they'll go from how do I feel about this? How does this fit into my core values? To how is this going to play out in the future? What's going to happen next? When they're in this FINI loop, they get overwhelmed by their own emotions and they start projecting into the future in a very negative way. It's a very interesting loop, actually, because they're not focused on the outside at all. So they get stuck within themselves. They get lost in these internal ideals because they're very idealistic, ISFPs, because they hold their core values so close. They get lost in these abstract fears because they're projecting into the future in a negative way. And they're skipping that very important second function for an ISFP, which is being present in the real world right now. They start to overthink because they're so stuck inside themselves. They overthink without taking action because they're skipping the function to do with the real world, the external. So for an ISFP, if you are stuck in this loop of how do I feel about this? How does this fit with my core values? To projecting into the future, intuiting your way into the future, stop what you're doing and be in the real world for a moment. Engage that second function, SE, and that looks like being present. So doing something physical to do with your external surroundings. So go for a walk or dance or paint or cook or do something that is a physical activity in the real world with your senses. So even things like listening to music or eating food or whatever it may be, it has to be something to do with the external world to come out of this internal loop. Return to the present moment and really be in the physical world around you. If an ISFP is extremely stressed out, it's going to send them into the grip state. The grip state is when they get stuck in the fourth function. So any of the 16 personalities, when they're extremely stressed, will get stuck in that inferior function. So they'll be using the inferior function, which is the weakest function, but in an unhealthy way. For an ISFP, the fourth function is TE, extroverted thinking. An ISFP, when they're healthy, is all about how they're feeling. They're very emotional individuals. They're in the present because they're using the second function. They might be thinking about the future a little bit using their third function. The fourth function is about getting stuff done. For an ISFP, when this is used in grip state, it's unhealthy. And so they start to become obsessed with results. Not only results, they start to become obsessed with control. TE is all about structure and organizing your life as well. They become very rigid, critical, right? It's a results oriented function. So they become very critical of themselves and of others. They become obsessed with control. So people with TE as their dominant function are very good at leading individuals and telling them what to do because they're very efficient with it. ISFPs, when they're in the grip state, they're using it in an unhealthy way. So they will start to become obsessed with what other people are doing and start to be very controlling because they're stressed out. They might lash out. They might try to over-organize their life. In a healthy state, ISFPs are very fluid. They're very creative. They're very emotional. But when they are stressed out, they become extremely rigid, structured. They become overly organized about life, which is very uncharacteristic for an ISFP. Usually, they're very warm individuals, they're flowing individuals. And when they're in the TE grip state, they're going to be disconnected from that warmth and the flow of their usual life. To come out of this grip state, and this is true for all the 16 personalities, the ISFP must recognize what the source of stress is and get rid of it as quickly as possible, because they will remain in that grip state until that source of stress is gone. Once the stress is gone, they will hopefully go back to their warm, flowy, creative selves. ISFPs, you are the creatives of the world. You are naturally flowing, feeling, creative individuals. So for ISFPs, my best advice is to come back to the present as much as possible. Sit with your core values, sit with your feelings. You're so attuned to them. Sit in the present and create. You are creators by nature. You have this quiet strength and a creative spark that I think is extremely inspiring. So ISFPs nurture that creativity, nurture that all important FI function at the front there. You know your core values and you know how you feel, and you can light the way for so many people who struggle with how they feel. ISFPs are amazing role models for how to be attuned to your emotions and transmute those emotions into the present, into something tangible. We are lucky to have ISFPs in our world because they are creative forces that bring such beauty into the world. ISFPs are also really chilled out individuals. They are so go with the flow. It's inspiring. That's it about the ISFP for today. I am currently dating people based off of Myers-Briggs personality types. I've actually, at the time of recording, not dated a single ISFP. So I would be very curious to see what it'd be like for an ENFP to be dating an ISFP. We have a lot in common. At the same time, there's a lot of differences there as well. Um, if you're interested in how the dynamic is between an ENFP and any of the other types, hit subscribe, because I am currently dating people of all the different 16 personalities, and I'll make videos with the results of my research on this channel. So hit subscribe. So I'm just coming out of 4 years of quite a stressful period in my life, and I'll talk more about that. That's really what inspired a lot of the content that I'm making now. I'll make more detailed videos about self-love, about radical love as a whole, after I've talked about Myers-Briggs. If you're an ISFP, please let me know in the comments whether I've missed anything or whether this description rings true for you. Speaking of creativity, I'm about to see G Space, one of my favorite artists out here in Atlanta. I love EDM. I love the EDM scene in the US. I've done a few videos about that. There'll be videos coming up about the EDM scene in the US too, because it was one of the factors that helped me put together some of these final pieces in myself in terms of radical love. Thanks for watching, and remember to embody love for yourself and for everyone else. Oh my God. Oh my